percent of the property is owned by.
Oh, is it?
All
It's
that
operated
clear
by
down-
South Suburban.
clear down to the street. That's all.
Doug and Deb.
South Suburban leases all of it, rents all of it.
Just so you guys know, I got called tonight. We got another Fine Arts Committee member who's in the process of resigning. No.
Who?
We're going to break this up, Bruce.
Carol and, yeah, I know, kidding. Maybe they're all mad at me. Carol and Ackley, one of the new hires, or new appointees.
Then I say we have Wendy go back to
We only
We've
got
got
two,
two
you got two left,
two left.
Kathy and.
Do they have to, how much do they have left? Are they asking us to bring in another
I
one?
haven't talked to Dixon. She was going to call Dixon tonight and have the conversation.
Yeah, I think we,
Well, yeah, but they won't get to,
Council,
We're meeting
you have the
Thursday.
agenda in front of you. I'd like to add an item to the agenda.
What agenda?
This one right here.
Executive session
Like is a little strong.
for client attorney information. Deb,
do I read it now?
please.
Are we on TV?
We are on session and on TV. Yes, we are.
I'd like to do that at the 7 o'clock.
The 7 o'clock meeting is after the 6 o'clock meeting. We're in session now.
Okay, but we should announce it.
I move that City Council convene an exec session pursuant to CRS Section 24-6-402, paren 4, subsection F, for a personnel matter,
For client attorney.
for client attorney privilege, advice,
And negotiations.
and negotiations immediately following our budget meeting this evening.
Second.
Thank you. The item C on the agenda. Discussion? Take by votes. All in favor, raise your hands. That's
Jose
unanimous.
voted twice. He's cheating again.
All right.
Getting
Now.
down, I got to get all the votes I can in.
Our first one is
Here we
Jim,
go.
you want to do the set of questions, the whole set of questions?
I can do that.
And then Phil, do you want to do the set of questions for the next one?
I will do that.
And Jose, do you want to do the questions after that?
Try.
And then Bruce?
Are they in Spanish? See? See?
Hold up.
What if you start reading them in Spanish? What would happen?
I should read them in German.
This is the hot seat? Okay. Sorry, maybe this is the hot seat. That's where the light shines. Thank you, Bill, for being interested enough and dedicated enough to interview and apply for the position.
And just why are you interested in being on the on the licensing authority?
I have always been interested in community. Right now, I'm Scoutmaster of a Boy Scout troop. I've always been interested in giving back. I spent 27 years in the military, active in reserves. And I've always just been interested. And I love Littleton, and I figured this would be a small way to give back.
Okay. And what kind of skills do you think you'd bring to the licensing board?
Well, my job, I'm a professional. I work financial areas, and my job is I'm a problem solver, and I seek solutions. I work with people. I find solutions, and I discuss things. I try to find common ground.
The council has an attendance requirement. They meet the second Wednesday of every month. Is there a problem with you being able to attend the monthly meetings?
Nope, our Boy Scout meetings are on Monday nights, and sometimes Thursdays, but Wednesdays I'm typically free.
I don't think they have very many special meetings, but they usually work that out, I think, among the members before they set up a date.
Okay.
So, what about being on television? Does it bother you to be on television?
No, I don't have a problem with that at all.
Because you're on television right now, by the way.
I kind of figured that.
Just thought I'd spring the question before I told you
Explains
that.
the bright lights.
Do you have any conscientious objections to drinking or the use of medical marijuana?
I personally drink. I enjoy wines and liquors. As far as medical marijuana, I don't personally use it, but I respect a person's right as long as within the confines of the law and it's been prescribed through normal means, yes.
While we're on that same topic, what's your feelings about the limit of the number of establishments in each of those cases?
Well, one thing that we liked about Littleton is it's very family-friendly. And I think that in order to keep it family-friendly, you have to find a kind of the right balance that people won't, if you had too many liquor licenses, maybe that would be too much where the families wouldn't come in. So you just have to find the proper balance and maintain that proper balance so that everybody feels welcome.
And what about the marijuana dispensaries or centers?
As long as there's a need for them and there's a market for them and there's a justification for it, then I would consider that.
You may or may not be aware, but the council set a limit on how many we can have of marijuana dispensaries or centers in the city and established that at 4. And they are all still operating. In fact, we may still have a 5th one operating if the lawsuit hadn't been settled yet. So.
Yeah, I think I know exactly where the 4 are.
Uh-oh.
Bode well, Bill.
Shopping?
All of the community.
Would you comment on your ability to be fair and impartial and limit your decisions to the evidence that's going to be presented in hearings?
I can tell you, being Scoutmaster of a Boy Scout troop, that's very applicable because a lot of times you get parents who come in and say, what about my boy? This happened, this happened. And you have to be fair. You have to be objective all the time. You have to be consistent. That's the most important thing is you have to be consistent in your principles and how you act and how you direct and how you make your decisions. As long as you maintain consistency, it's easy to justify your decision. It's easy to explain your decisions.
Are you in law enforcement, or do you have any interest in a bar or a restaurant of any form?
No. I have friends who own restaurants. I've always been fascinated by the industry and the business, but I don't have any interest, financial or otherwise, in any restaurant or eating establishments, anything like that.
The last question I'll ask is, sometimes there's a question come up in a hearing before the authority about stipulations. Do you have any comments about whether they should or should not?
You mean stipulation as far as getting a license granted?
Or primarily because of a license violation?
Oh, yeah. I think it would be very important if they do have a license, whether it's liquor or the medical marijuana. If they have a license, they have to live by the rules of the license. And if they've done something that would either result in either a temporary or permanent suspension, I'd try to be very fair and look at all the facts in the case and hear all the evidence and arguments.
Counsel, I don't have any other questions. Does anybody else want to?
Just want to clarify maybe your last question. Essentially, what we've had issues with on the stipulation is if somebody's come in for a violation and has to appear before the licensing authority, there has traditionally been an opportunity to stipulate to the facts of the case and basically save attorneys' fees and time and so forth and so on in terms of rehashing the facts of what actually transpired that led to the infraction.
Oh, okay.
And then the question ends up being is how does the board feel about accepting a stipulation with respect to certain aspects of the case and or a penalty in exchange for not having to have an evidentiary hearing? And so part of it is what are your thoughts on having to go through the whole process of having specific hearings and have evidence presented versus accepting somebody stipulating that, yeah, I did something wrong and I'm willing to take the penalty?
Oh, well, it kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier, that I seek solutions. And I think a lot of times, even in case of a minor infraction or something, I think a lot of times it can be resolved with, let's get together, let's talk about it, and come up with the right solution.
Any other questions, council?
Bill, have you ever watched or attended any of the licensing authority meetings?
I have not, no.
It's good entertainment.
We usually have a ratings contest. So.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Because they have some interesting cases.
I would imagine.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Did we ask number 4?
I did.
Yes.
I tied it in number 1.
Okay,
Well, thank you, Bill, very much.
Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
thank you.
We'll make our decision.
What we could do right after number 1.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sense to me, so
Yeah.
I changed the order.
Should we ask any of them if they want to be on fine arts?
There you go.
Hello, where do you want me?
The brightest light we can find.
The brightest light you can find.
And what we forgot to ask is keep in there. Thank you, Ann, for coming down and spending the time to apply and interview with us. We appreciate it. We respect your commitment to the community, reflected in your willingness to volunteer for this.
Volunteer? Oh, wait, oh.
Yeah, I guess nobody explained the salary.
Well, I thought I'd ask at the end of the meeting, but now,
And
thank
so,
you.
Ann, I got cast lots, and I get to be your interrogator for the session, or at least your primary interrogator.
Oh, well,
So-
great. I took a few notes, so go ahead.
Okay, so, good, we're on a time schedule this evening, so if you just want to make copies. First off, could you explain to the council, why are you interested in serving on the licensing authority?
Well, I've lived in the city of Littleton for 20 years, and I have gotten both my kids through the Littleton Public Schools. Now that my kids are out of the house, more or less, I have more time to get involved, and I would really like to get involved with the city of Littleton. As many of you probably know, I am a real estate agent. Used to have my business in the Denver Tech Center, and a few years ago I relocated to here. So between, being a resident and being in business here, I'd very much like to get involved with more of the community.
Thank you. What particular skills or experience do you believe you would be bringing to the licensing authority?
Well, in my current position as Realtor, I work with policies and procedures all the time. And what I did was I printed out, so I could see exactly what this board is comprised of. And you have a lot of policies and procedures set forth for people to follow. In my business, as a real estate agent, we have the Real Estate Commission that we, have to, acknowledge and adhere to their rules. We have the Ethics Committee. So I am used to following and enforcing rules and regulations, which you have here. And I'll go in a little bit. There's another question down here that kind of goes on some of my past experience, where I feel like that experience will come into this also.
We may not get to that, so you'll have to figure out how to slyly get it into.
I can.
Okay.
Don't worry.
The council does have an attendance criterion for the boards and commissions. The licensing authority tends to have their meetings on the second Wednesday of the month. Do you anticipate having any difficulty in attending their meetings?
I don't see any difficulty. This would be my priority.
Now, some of the council and some of the boards and commissions do have their meetings telecast. Do you have any reservations or concerns over that?
I feel like I'm fairly good at public speaking. I don't have a problem with that, although I am concerned if the camera will add 10 pounds.
Well, you can examine. You can
As all we are.
Yeah, that's...
As are we all.
Yeah. Well, you can go back and in a few days, this will be posted on the website, so you can go back and you can view it, because right now it's streaming worldwide on the internet. So.
Hi, Mom.
There you go.
No, I have no concerns about that.
Do you have any conscientious objections to alcohol consumption or the use of medical marijuana?
No, I do not.
Now, could you comment on your ability to be fair and impartial, and in this context, recognize that the authority is a quasi-judicial, and being in a position where you would limit your decisions to the evidence that is presented in chambers and the requirements stated in the city code?
Well, like I said, I've read through the code. It seems to me like the policies are, pretty set forth of what is expected for licensees and conduct of establishments. As I was saying, right now as a real estate agent, I do a lot of mediation and arbitration on a daily basis. I gather information, I gather data, and that helps me make my decisions, and it also helps me give information to my clients so they can make decisions. I have to be fair and impartial. Like I said, there's an ethics committee. I can't steer people. And I don't want them to have my ideas. I want them to have enough information that they can make their own educated decisions. Before I came to Littleton, I worked with Coldwell Banker in Southern California, and I was their human resource representative for their corporate office. One of the things I did was I helped them write their policy and procedure manual for their corporation. And as a personnel representative, I was responsible for overseeing the policies and procedure manual and enforcing it. So I think that ties in with, I have to be impartial, and I have to take, if we had disputes, I'd take in the consideration the information was brought to me, to help, come up with actions for the disputes.
There's, in the courts and also with the authority, there's been some discussion with regard to the process called stipulation, where possibly someone that is being brought before the authority for violations can agree to the facts and possibly also agree to a punishment as part of that. When that happens, it kind of takes the authority, the board itself, out of the process, because it's usually something that's decided in part with the prosecutor before it might be brought, and then the board has a chance to, in effect, kind of rubber stamp that. What are some of your thoughts on stipulation being used as part of procedures before the authority?
So the stipulations, they bring to us what the action is going to be?
And
Okay.
an agreement to the facts.
Okay, and then we look at it and we agree with it, we don't agree with it, we make sure it's enforced?
The hook is that if the stipulation has a penalty associated with it, how do you feel about that penalty being negotiated by the prosecutor or the attorney rather than assigned?
Well, I would hope that they would have taken in all the information and looked at it impartially and come to their decision. And it seems like we would then, need to uphold their decision. So, if there's someone else, that's saying, here's what we're going to do, I can live with that.
And it's helps to reduce, on the other side, the pro to it is that it helps to reduce the cost. Witnesses
okay.
don't necessarily need to be brought, particularly if there are either police officers or witnesses that might be used from out of town, regathering them as opposed to folks saying, I agree to the facts.
Well, and if there are people that have more information and more knowledge about the action or the incident than I do, then perhaps they could make a better determination than the board.
Thank you on that. You've mentioned you're a realtor,
Yep.
but you could be undercover. So are you part of law enforcement?
No.
Do you have any interest in bar, restaurant, or liquor outlet?
No. I occasionally go to one,
Okay.
but no, I have no vested interest.
As far as I know, that doesn't count against you.
Okay.
Maybe it counts for you. Any interest in a medical marijuana center?
No.
And in Littleton, the council has established a limit on the number of medical marijuana centers that there are. Not yet setting any particular limit with regard the liquor outlets or liquor licenses at this stage. What are your feelings about limiting the number of liquor licenses?
I think as long as the licensees are responsible and adhere to your policies and procedures and provide a safe environment for both their patrons and for the city of Littleton, I don't see any need to limit the license for liquor. But that's the thing. They need to be responsible. I believe, that especially like with the new tavern in town, that's brought a lot of new people into the area. So these establishments that are, restaurants, we're getting a lot of exposure from people outside of the immediate Littleton area that might not have been here before. And they're coming into downtown, they're seeing what we have to offer, we have great restaurants, they can have a drink, they can do some shopping, they see our town hall center, we're on the light rail. I think it's great exposure to have this, but, they have to be responsible and they will have to be monitored.
Thank you. And title is real estate broker in your current responsibilities. Have you represented or would you anticipate as part of your practice representing either a licensee or a potential licensee or a holder of a medical marijuana center license?
No, I'm residential real estate only, not commercial.
Thank you. Have you ever watched or attended any of the licensing authority meetings?
No, I have not.
Do you have any conscientious objection to the use of medical marijuana?
No, I do not. Once again, it has to be responsible, monitored. People need to be, cognizant of what they're doing. Whether they're the person that's using the medical marijuana or selling. And that's part of why this board is here, to make sure that, those things aren't abused.
Any other questions, council? Thank you very much, Ann.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We have 10 applications for 2 spots. If we purchase it, could we keep your application on in case of another meeting?
I would love it. You'll see me again.
Okay, thank you. And by the way, the process happens, January each year?
February.
February each year, but I think they start doing applications, so.
Applications are
We
taken.
generally do the boards at the first of the year, but we've had some openings come up. Okay, great.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate seeing all of you again.
We hope to make a decision next week. Thank you again for
Thank you.
coming down and answering.
Oh, I didn't know there were snacks.
Grab one, please.
Oh, I gotta watch that, Tim.
It's in lieu of salary.
Well, I learned something interesting today.
Watson.
Watson.
No Watson.
I went to the bank
You're up
to
next.
open my campaign account, and I had to sign a document. And on that document, I had to initial that this account had nothing to do with buying,
I do.
selling,
Good, Jose, yourself?
anything with
Doing all
medical
right.
marijuana.
Counsel?
I'll be asking you some questions
I
tonight.
said,
Very good, sir.
Starting off, we would ask you, why are you interested in serving on the license authority?
My wife and I are presently unemployed, but not entirely by choice, so we have lots of time. We're used to working 12-hour days and 6 and 7 days a week, and we're not now. So I've joined the Board of Building Appeals, and that doesn't occupy enough time and space. So I'm here hoping to do the same kind of work for the Liquor Licensing Authority.
What skills or experience would you bring to this board?
Well, I've got too much education that I won't go into, but I've had 30 years of real estate development experience. My father was Elmer Watson of Watson's Pharmacy at 9th and Lincoln. I'm familiar with pharmacy requirements for all of my life. I've never participated in illegal drugs, but I'm familiar with the marijuana process and how it operates in Denver, and I'm pleased with the city and the way they've handled their 4 marijuana dispensaries, if that's the way it's going to continue. And I have an experience with liquor licenses, never as a licensee, but they were in my family, and I'm familiar with the process for licenses, application, violation processing, and what should happen regularly in Denver and Lakewood and other cities around the state. I don't know that I've ever participated in Littleton, but I'm familiar generally with how the process operates.
The council has an attendance criterion, and would you be available to meet on the night of your board or commission, which is on the second Tuesday or Wednesday of the month? Yeah, Wednesday of the month.
Absolutely. I've got a 100% attendance requirement for the Board of Building Appeals, and I don't tend to miss meetings or parties for that matter. So I'll be able to attend all of those at a complete 100%.
I don't know how many parties they have, unfortunately.
Well, the annual party anyway. I have double invites if that were the case.
Would you be uneasy, worried, or intimidated by the telecasting of your board meeting on Littleton's Channel 8?
Doesn't bother me one way or other. I'm not looking for fame as a Littleton licensee authority, but I'm not concerned about it. I presume it's being broadcast tonight, but it's of virtually no importance to me.
Okay, thank you.
Means my wife will know what I'm doing. She'll be happy about it.
Do you have any conscientious objections to drinking or using medical marijuana?
I have no objections to alcohol whatsoever, and I'm familiar with alcohol and licensing authorities. In terms of marijuana, I don't know that I've never participated, never taken marijuana in any fashion. I understand the rules and will apply them fairly. If there's a medical necessity, I can understand it. If someone's a qualified licensee and one of our city spots was available, I think that should be considered fairly, and that's what I would agree to do. I have my concerns about what happens with, like, for example, in the city of Denver, how the multiple licenses have caused problems. But I think Littleton has it under control, and it should be considered fairly, and there are some people that have a medical necessity for it. I don't know that I understand it, but I would certainly look at it and give them every opportunity to hear what the evidence was.
This next question, you've pretty much answered it with the other one, but would you comment on your ability to be fair and impartial and limit your decisions to the evidence presented in chambers and the requirements stated in the city code?
I'm familiar with the requirements for licensing and reasonableness and necessity, and I don't have a lot of biases for people or projects, so I'd be happy to listen to what their requirements are. I've certainly not had any problem with the Board of Building Appeals in making that decision, and just share my opinions on what the relevant facts and law are.
Are you in law enforcement?
No, sir.
Or do you have any interest in a bar, restaurant, liquor store, or medical marijuana center?
No, sir. I saw the question. The closest thing I could find is my wife made a small loan to a restaurant that I'm not involved in, and it's not something that would affect my judgment. It's not in Littleton, for example, so it doesn't affect me in terms of how I feel about the businesses.
At the present time, Littleton has 4 medical marijuana establishments, and what are your feeling about limiting the number of these licenses?
Well, it depends on medical necessity, I'm certain, and I would not willingly expand them just for the sake of expanding them, because the city has 4 that are available for people. Denver certainly has a proliferation if they're interested. I'd look at it honestly and fairly in terms of the evidence that was presented if the council chose to expand the number, but I'd need to know what the evidence is. Even the persons who said they rely on medical marijuana and it's necessary have not indicated that we need more licenses. That's my experience with them. But I'd look at the evidence and the law before I'd make a decision.
How do you feel about stipulation? This would be in liquor license violations or when the evidence is presented and a plea bargain is reached and you don't have anything to say with it, about it.
That doesn't bother me. I think virtually all liquor license violations are resolved that way. Businesses, in my experience, once again, tend to be people that want to stay in business. I've had to deal with it with my mother when she was 69 years old and had to deal with a police cadet who had a driver. She couldn't read the driver's license, let alone tell if the cadet was 20 or 80. So these are, generally speaking, honest people, don't know the process. They need to be stipulated out so they can try to preserve their business. And I presume that's how most of them will continue to be handled, and that doesn't bother me one whit. So I think that's an appropriate way to resolve them for people that are uneducated in the experience, don't want to experience a large degree of expense, and don't want to face the loss of their business because of a mistake they made, because we can all make mistakes.
My question. Any other questions here?
Have you watched or attended any of the licensing authority meetings?
I have in other jurisdictions, not in the city of Littleton. We've lived here 10 years, but I've never had anybody involved in either a license violation or application in the city of Littleton. But I've been to many in the last several years because of friends that were facing a violation. For example, my family had liquor licenses in Denver for the Watson's Pharmacy and the pharmacy license there as well. But never in Littleton. And I haven't watched the TV channel, quite frankly. So.
John, I think you answered the question about limiting the number of licenses for medical marijuana, but what about limiting the number of liquor licenses in the city?
Reasonableness and necessity. I lived in downtown Denver as well, where there is a liquor license on all four sides of my loft project, and that was reasonable and necessary because it's Lodo. But I sure wouldn't want to see them on all four sides of me in my neighborhood, or next to schools, or in inappropriate jurisdictions. So it's reasonableness and necessity, and you know, Littleton has that area on Littleton Boulevard where it's probably reasonable to have one on every business for half a dozen businesses in a row, and that doesn't bother me. But there's certainly no necessity to do that same thing in neighborhoods that don't have a strip mall and other bars, nightclubs, and restaurants adjacent to them. It depends on the facts and the law.
Okay.
Any other questions, council? Thank you very much, John, for
Certainly.
coming
Thanks,
down.
Mayor.
We appreciate your service on the
Have a good evening, folks.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John.
We'll make a decision in the next week or two.
Very good. And the application on file is not a follow-on.
They can't serve on two boards though, right?
Yeah, they can.
They can?
Those two.
We've had
Have
them
we?
before.
Who? Because we got Gallagher too.
I don't think so. I don't think we can.
I don't think they
thought it was a
can.
single board.
I thought we had one that we had to have resign the board because they wanted them.
Yeah,
They said they would.
We'll talk about it later, but I think we have.
Well, I don't know. It's up to us.
Really?
Welcome.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming in.
But they can't?
Happy to be here.
We're going to go through, I think, some of the questions that I'm assuming and hoping were provided to you ahead of time.
They were,
So,
yeah.
We have a quick chat about those and maybe ask a few other questions if that's all right.
Perfect.
Okay. The first question is, why are you interested in serving on the licensing authority?
Well, first of all, the quality of life that Littleton affords is very important to me. Second, my wife has served on one of the Littleton boards for a number of years and has found it to be very fulfilling, and it is, would be a good way for me to make some contribution to that quality of life.
Can you talk a bit about the skills or experience you'd bring to this particular board?
Sure. I am a small business owner, member of our board, and so I think the experience I've had over the last 20 years involved in that business gives me an ability to make critical decisions and deal with things in a fair and even-handed way.
Council has an attendance criteria for all
boards and commissions. Would your availability be not an issue as far as meeting on the second Wednesday of the month for the licensing authority?
Yeah, that should be fine.
Would you have any concerns, worries, uneasiness, or intimidation with respect to being telecast on Channel 8, the government access?
No, none.
Okay. Let's see here. Do you have any conscientious objections to drinking or the use of medical marijuana?
No, I don't.
Would you be able to comment on your ability to be fair and impartial and limit your decisions to evidence presented in chambers and the requirements as stated in the city code?
Sure, yeah, I don't think that would be a problem at all. I had a situation a few years ago where I was on a jury in a rape case, actually, and the individual who was being accused was definitely not a good person. He had a very troubled background, and there was a feeling amongst all the jurors that probably something happened, but in this particular case, given the facts that were presented and the jury instructions and so forth, it was very clear that the burden of proof had not been met, and we acquitted him. And so it's, we were able to follow those instructions carefully and I think came to the correct conclusion in that case.
Have you any involvement in law enforcement or any financial interest in a bar, restaurant, liquor store, or medical marijuana center?
No.
The city council has limited the number of licenses for medical marijuana centers to a total of 4. However, there's no such prohibition on the absolute number of liquor licenses that can be granted. So what are your feelings about limiting the number of potential liquor licenses?
Well, I think so long as the group or individual applying for the license has gone through the proper process and there's nothing in their background that would indicate that they were going to run the business in any way other than a very neighborhood friendly and legal fashion, I don't know that a quota or something would necessarily be appropriate. I mean, there is no quota now, and I feel like the balance of liquor establishments in Littleton is good. I mean, it's not like South Broadway or something like that. I wouldn't want to see that, obviously, but
the licensing authority has, on occasion, I mean, a lot of times what will happen with the licensing authority is that someone who holds, for example, a liquor license in a bar, for the sake of an argument, will be cited for serving a patron that's inebriated or a minor. And there's the potential opportunity for the licensee to essentially stipulate to the facts of the case, the situation that led to the citation, and then agree to pay the fine, which is worked out between the respective attorneys and presented to the board. Alternately, the board can actually ask for an evidentiary hearing where both sides, the defendant and the plaintiff, which would be the city, would have to present evidence as to what happened in the situation. Talk about your thoughts upon concerning maybe the pro and con of one side of that versus the other.
well, I think if the facts of the case are agreed upon by all parties, then I think stipulating to those facts is perfectly appropriate. If there's some significant dispute as to the facts, then an evidentiary hearing I think would be perfectly appropriate. I guess that's kind of my thought.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I've got, but
Phil has one.
Well, John, congratulations on your CFA designation.
Oh, thanks.
Those aren't easy to come by. Part of that puts you in a position of being able to determine from businesses their creditworthiness or their business valuation for either tax or transfer purposes. With that, do you have any clients that are licensees, or do you anticipate being in any position, given the business that you have, of having a client that might be a licensee or a licensee applicant?
Sure. Yeah, the business that I have is a bank. We do interest rate risk management work for banks, and they're all over the country. So I don't think there's any type of conflicts there. On the other hand, because banking is such a heavily regulated industry, I've had an opportunity to see how, number one, how important regulation is, but also the importance that the implementation or enforcement of those regulations is done in a fair and even-handed way. I've been kind of on both sides of that particular issue.
Thank you.
That-
I have a question, although it may be more related to your banking,
Bank?
but, and it's a little bit, it's somewhat off of this beaten path, but I mentioned it to Jim earlier. I opened my campaign account this afternoon, and for the first time ever, I was given a document that I had to sign that said that I was not going to use this account for anything having to do with medical marijuana, that I wasn't buying it, that I wasn't selling it, that I wasn't operating a business, that I wasn't, I mean, it was like,
Wow.
it was like 2 lines of it. And I asked them, I said, is that new? And they said, mm-hmm. And they said it came down from the feds.
Yeah.
So it is, I mean, marijuana is federally, it's still illegal. So do you know
Right.
anything about?
I think what it is I think they're using and that's totally out of the area of banking that we work in, but I think that's probably some anti-money laundering safeguards that they're trying to put in. And because marijuana is still federally illegal. And banks are federally insured and so forth.
Right.
That's, I'm sure, the genesis of that. But
So you have the Justice Department saying they're not going to prosecute them, and then you have whoever regulates the banks.
Well,
saying they're not going to allow them to do banks.
they can't open an account.
Well, and I've heard that actually from several people that these dispensaries are having a really hard time getting funding because none of the banks want to do business with them.
Want to lend them any money? Well, if
They're
we,
mostly on a cash basis, yeah.
because of the federal law.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well, that was a little off the beaten path, but a little interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Have you ever watched the the licensing authority on television?
No, I don't think I have. I've watched a few council meetings, but not, I don't think.
Oh, boy.
So we've got
Big star.
better ratings. Better for us.
Any other questions, Council?
Maybe we should ask what he thought of them.
No.
Let's stop while we're ahead.
Thank you. Yeah.
We'll make her decision. And then there's 10 applicants for 2 positions, so
What are you looking at?
keep your application until
Oh,
January where we start the process.
they rewrote it?
Yeah, thank you. You bet.
Oh, will you get relegated to the back row, Debbie? How about?